Welcome to Cover Book Beat. I'm your host, Roger Nichols, and we are in for a serious treat today. We're joined today for, we might call it the trilogy, the hat trick, or the three-peat, the third appearance of David Boito. We first talked back in July of 2022 about his first novel, Valley Flyers, and I said at the time, one of the great joys of interviewing authors is being able to get in on the ground floor of a new author who has the promise of great things, and boy was I right. Valley Flyers won a Literary Titan Silver Award. Since that time, he followed up with Bee Conspiracy in January of 2024. Now he is back with a new thriller, Fatal Castle. But before we drag him into the arena, let me say, it was a pretty safe bet to predict his success. David studied screenplay at UCLA, been involved in the entertainment world for a number of years. He was a broadcast producer for 116 episodes of the TV series New Girl, an in-house producer for 36 episodes of the TV series Homeland. And in my favorite bit of trivia, he wrote an episode of Head of the Class starring my favorite actor, Howard Hesseman, native Oregonian, formerly Dr. Johnny Fever of WKRP in Cincinnati. He's authored short stories. He's been published in the UCLA Literary Journal, West Wind, among others. And we are pleased to welcome back David Boito. Congratulations. Nice job.
Well, thank you, Roger. It's always a pleasure to speak with you.
Now, I have to say, I noticed things like the dedication you dedicated the book to those who protect and preserve historic relics for future generations. Now, as somebody who sits on the board of two museums, co-authored a book on local history, and has many local historian friends, we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. I was not aware of that, but thank you, Roger. That's fantastic.
You know, you talked about writing both Valley Flyers and Bee Conspiracy as a screenplay before converting it to a novel because, and I like this, you wanted to take the story directly to the readers without going through the intermediaries of film production. But I have never seen a book more ready for a screenplay. So I have to ask you, did you write the screenplay first? Did you write them simultaneously? Or were you just thinking about a screenplay when you wrote this?
I did write a screenplay prior to the novel of Fatal Castle. Yes.
It seems to work for you.
Yeah.
Because that lets you get the meat of it down, and it's often always shorter for a screenplay, and then flesh it out with more detail. And again, I looked at this and I saw screenplay big time. I want to see this movie. I really do. This should be a winner, and we'll talk about that shortly. But here's my elevator pitch for you.
Okay.
Die Hard meets Robin Hood.
Love it.
So anyway, feel free to file the serial numbers off and take that with you in your meetings for that.
Okay.
Well, I think the setup is so. I want to let you describe the setup because I'm not sure how far to go with some of the really interesting bits on here. So we'll say that you have an unusual protagonist as is your wont. So I believe he is the chief yeoman warder of the Tower of London.
Correct. Yeah, that's Clive Bellamy, and he is a 25-year military veteran, which is a requirement for anybody that wants to become a yeoman warder at the Tower, to be a military veteran. And obviously, it's a very prestigious position. Many veterans apply, only few are chosen. But yes, he is. He could be a retiree, but he instead chooses to serve his country again in a different capacity. And he gets to live on the premises of the Tower. That's one thing that I found very fascinating about the yeoman warders, aka the beefeaters, is that these people, I hesitate to say guys because now there are some women that are also beefeaters. I believe there's 2 or 3 at this point. Anyways, they live on the premises of the Tower. So they literally live in this medieval environ, but yet, outside those walls, obviously it's the 21st century city. So I was fascinated by the dichotomy of these people that are sort of living a I hesitate to say monastic existence, but they're living an anachronistic existence, I would say. They're sort of, in a way, at least in my way of looking at it, they're sort of people out of time,
Mm-hmm. And it's what's fascinating to me as the plot develops, there's this conflict in combativeness between the ages as well. And I think that's one of the most exciting things about it.
Yeah, and that was another aspect that fascinated me, that I wanted to address. Sort of the dichotomy between people who are really immersed in ancient culture, ancient history, know it very well. I mean, these guys lead tours of the tower, and have an immense amount of information to impart if you ever do a tour. They really are scholars of the almost 1,000-year existence of this place. And then you have the modern police, and obviously in this case the modern criminals, who enter the story.
Well, I think the thing that I really saw you develop a couple of things. One is you have a neat side plot with his daughter, who becomes a pretty interesting character in herself, Ashley, and she is. I have to quote this because this just blew me away when I read this. Again, you're used to this because I usually quote you back some of your really fun parts, and here's you have a good idea for the telling detail again, and this is my favorite. Ashley Bellamy was a Diamond fan since she was a little girl. Not the Arizona Diamondbacks, not Neil Diamond. She was a fan of diamonds. If there had been such a thing as diamond cards as there were baseball cards, she would have every single one. She'd know every faceted cut, every mine, every type of stone, and the history and legends that went along with them. I love that. You could have so much fun with that as a character if you're playing that part. And that comes in service of the story and some of the things that happen because the tower, of course, is where the crown jewels are stored, and that's a target for people. So,
Indeed. I mean, obviously, I wrote this now a couple of years ago, but I started it anyway. But you have now the Louvre heist
mhm.
just recently, and I guess somebody pointed out to me even more recently there were some protesters that went to the Crown Jewels exhibit. I believe they spilled, I don't know, some kind of paint or something all over the display cases, and so
Hmm.
that was, so art imitating life or vice versa. I don't know.
Well, one of the things that you do, and again, this is another nice bit of writing that I appreciate, is that you open the book with the scene of this famous diamond being delivered to Queen Victoria, and then somebody talking about the curse that goes along with it. And I love that because that sets up everything that happens thereafter. And how do you pronounce that? I looked at that a couple of times and I'm going to mess it up if I do it. I'll let the pro tell me how to pronounce the
The
name of that. But
Kohinoor diamond.
Kohinoor. Okay. I
Yeah,
went Kohinoor, whatever. So yeah, anyway.
yeah. Mountain of light is what it means.
Yeah. And it was recut twice to at two different times as well, on different things. So uh, again,
It
I
used
love
to be
people.
much bigger, yeah,
Yeah.
but it wasn't as sparkly when it was in its original form.
It's a lump, basically. Yeah, and again, I love people who send me off looking doing research on things. And when you started mentioning that, I said I've heard some stuff, but I had to look it up. And so then Wikipedia gets another 10 books worth of my time as I look things up
Well,
for
that's
that.
what I love too when I read stuff.
Yeah.
I love to learn stuff from works of fiction. I
Hmm.
mean, that's I thoroughly enjoy historical fiction for that reason.
Yeah, and again, I guess we can say safely that this is a story of a heist, but it's not a heist story from the inside where you're doing all the cool things and how you figure it out. It's preventing a heist that is the important part here. Um, and you managed to sprinkle history tidbits all through this in a way that's absolutely integral to the plot. As we used to get in earlier writing, stop 3 pages explaining why the scientist does this and then go back to the story. No, it's all integral and enmeshed. So that's a gift, and you use it well. So thank you
Now,
for
you're
that.
very kind. I did receive a couple reviews that mentioned that they felt that those historical tidbits had slowed down the action a bit, but you know, everybody has a right to their opinion.
They do, and but I learned some things about that. Now, I actually visited the tower. My wife and I, in 2005, made my very first ever overseas trip, but
Oh,
I didn't do the tour. I didn't go to the. I went to the ceremony, an evening ceremony, because they've been doing that for 700 years, and I had to see
yes,
that.
the
Yeah.
ceremony of the keys
Yes,
when they close the tower down. Yes,
and I had to about 3 months in advance to get a ticket for that, and
yes,
I
that's
did. Yeah.
correct. Yeah, it's still that way.
Yeah, and very moving and very almost emotional because you think
Yes,
about,
very regal. The
yeah,
pomp and circumstance of the place is really on display, and that's it. Does it sort of puts a lump in your throat?
yeah, and you think about the people who it originally was not built as a prison or as an execution ground. It was built as a castle to take control or defend the area. And I was surprised to learn that originally it was the royal menagerie where they kept their exotic animals in it up until I think it was 1835 when one of the dukes moved them off to start the London Zoo with that.
Yes.
So lots of little tidbits. I guess the thing that when I think Die Hard, I think of somebody who is in the building when the bad guys are there and is a lone opponent to them. And there's an aspect of that here, certainly. And again, I don't know how far down that road you want to go, but the thing that gets me is I'll just go ahead and say it is end up defending it with medieval weapons against modern weapons, and that contrast just is like is movie gold. It's made for somebody to go, this is a cool idea. So, can I ask where the idea came from?
Well, obviously, I've seen the movie Die Hard, big fan of it.
Yeah.
And the first time I did visit the tower, that I'm always looking for a movie idea. I'm
Hmm.
always looking for or a story idea. And that was something that came to me when I was there was that this place is a repository of ancient weapons. And I thought to myself, what if there was, a reason that these weapons actually had to be put to use? Um, and so I sort of went from there.
Yeah. And somehow the thought of somebody standing behind one of the arrow slits with an English longbow facing off against somebody with a submachine gun that can't get at him because there's no place for the bullets to go, and he's able to, and being up high and shooting down, have all that advantage. It's a great feel to that all the way through. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that newer is not always better. Sometimes
Hmm.
it is, but not always. And
Yeah.
so I wanted to create this scenario where that applied. Newer is not always better in this circumstance.
How much research did you have to do once you got the idea?
A considerable amount. I did a considerable. I'm a big research nerd.
Hmm.
So I researched the subject pretty thoroughly. I was there twice, and toured around looking at all the nooks and crannies. I had a correspondence with a guy who at the time was the chief yeoman warder at the tower. I asked him a number of questions and he sent me some information. I don't even know if I mentioned that I was writing a book at the time, but
Oh,
yeah,
that's cool.
I mean, I don't know how to quantify it in actual hours, but I would say certainly a third of the time, spent writing the book is research.
Wow. Um, I also want to talk about the secondary protagonist in Ashley Bellamy, the Clive's daughter. We mentioned her briefly before, but there's a lot of back and forth with her and her father. It does not start out as a congenial relationship. She's mad at him because her mom couldn't stand being the wife of somebody who devoted his life so much to the tower and moved back to America. And she's visiting and she's hoping for his attention, and things happen and he can't give her the attention because he needs to do his tower stuff. Uh, that has a realistic feel to it. I mean, it's not added on in a let's put this plot element in it. It just feels like a real person might have had that situation. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to sort of create a contrast between this guy Clive, who's sort of walled himself into this ancient fortress, and somebody from the outside, and who lives in the modern world, yet cares for him very deeply. And so this was sort of a merger between the two.
Yeah, and the hit and the miss that two different persons looking at the same situation, reading them differently too, and that happens as well. And also, one of my favorite twists: there's somebody there in the action who is not who they appear to be, or has motives unlike what you expect them, which is always an interesting thing. My wife and I read to each other. We're currently reading the Black Wolf by Louise Penny, and there's some of that going on. So I'm having to separate the plots when I go from one to the other. So it's a
Oh,
really
wow.
intriguing. Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
I'll have to pick that up.
oh, it is. I think the best so far. I'm a huge Inspector Lamache fan. I would move to Three Pines today. I once had a chance to interview Louise Penny, and I told her that, and she said, "Well, what about Ruth?" I said, "Ruth is the mustard in the sandwich. Ruth is the one that keeps you interested." This is the character that she writes. I'm talking about somebody else's book on your dime, but I just have to see. I
Okay.
see you smiling and laughing too, because you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. I'm sorry. Back to you. Um, one of the things that was another nice little bit, and I don't. This is not a huge bit to give away, but at one point, Clive has taken prisoner, and he puts the guy in the stocks to hold him while he's going off doing something else. And I thought, that's a beautiful movie moment. I can see that scene. The guy's going, "What are you doing? What's going on? What is this?"
Yeah, I like movie moments. I mean, obviously, as a screenwriter, I'm always looking for good movie moments.
Mhm.
So yeah, that is one of them.
And again, I've got a few more quotes to throw at you because I found those intriguing. One, he says, "Others undressed medieval mannequins and adorned themselves in chainmail helmets and gambesons, the medieval precursor to Kevlar." That's that's a great analogy there. I do love it. And one of the things I thought, he's got to get this wrong. I went to look this up. One of the things involves with fiber optics being installed in tunnels in the 1970s. And I said, no, there's no way. Fiber optics are long. And I went and researched, and of course, yes, it was true. We didn't hear about fiber optics here, probably the late 90s, I would say. But they were installed in London back then. So, yeah, very cool.
The British are in some ways ahead of their time on certain things,
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Yeah, indeed. Working subway systems are one of them, but that's a whole nother situation there.
Yeah.
Um, have you cast this in your mind? I have to ask this because I know you're in the industry.
I can tell you that uh, there was a moment when this was a screenplay prior to the novelization that
Yeah.
there was a producer that liked the script and sent it to Pierce Brosnan.
Ooh.
He ultimately passed on it, but somebody like that would be great.
Mhm.
I don't try to get too locked into a face when I'm
Sure.
writing.
Hmm.
There's a couple guys on British television, British actors that I think would be fantastic. I watch Acorn TV a lot,
Hmm.
and there's several British actors that would be fantastic, but it remains to be seen, obviously.
Indeed. So I have to ask, I know that if one time some of the other books are being shopped around, any progress in any of that we could report?
Nothing major to report at this time,
Hmm.
unfortunately. We'll keep you posted, though.
Okay. I mean, I'll be buying the first ticket. I'll guarantee you.
Thank
Uh,
you, Roger. That's
yeah.
kind.
Again, I want to go back to one thing that occurred to me is I mentioned earlier you have unusual protagonists, and Valley Flyers was a 17-year-old boy who was a bit of an outsider. The Bee Conspiracy, it's a special agent for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. I think that's the first and only novel ever written with that as a protagonist. And I would be hard-pressed to think of another Chief Yeoman Warder book where that was the protagonist. So there's something about somebody that's not quite the standard that I think intrigues you. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I'm very interested in eccentric characters, characters that are not, don't do not sort of fit into the normal role playing of the society, that are sort of a little bit outsiders, see things a different way. Yeah, absolutely correct.
Yeah. Do you see yourself as an outsider?
Well, as a writer, I think to a certain degree you are an outsider, and that you're always sort of looking at the world, from the vantage point of somebody who's looking for a story, so you're looking around you. I mean, I love to people watch, just, looking around you and trying to see, where's the story next going to
Hmm.
come from.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I'd say I'm an outsider. I mean, obviously, I'm not a recluse or anything. I'm not Salinger or anybody like that.
um, I just sparked in my head a Robert Heinlein quote, and he said, "Writing is a solitary vice. You should do it in private and wash your hands afterwards." So I thought I would just mention that to you.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
quote.
and I think it was the other one. I think it was Ted Sturgeon or somebody said, "Oh, it's easy. You just sit down a typewriter and open up a vein." So that's it.
Yeah, there's a lot of those quotes.
Yeah. How much of your experience actually enters into this? I know you've been around and done a lot of things, but it feels like you're living the parts as well when you're writing.
Okay, what is the question exactly?
I
Sorry.
says, how much of your experience colors the writing? Because it feels like you're living the part as you do this.
Uh, Very good question. My experience colors, I think, all of my writing. I mean, obviously, I'm not a British, yeoman warder or
Hmm.
anything, but I always try to take my characters down paths that I personally find interesting, and that I perhaps take some experience from my own life and try to apply it to the character in their situation. Obviously, that can be very convoluted,
Hmm.
but certainly, I mean, I think any writer is very much influenced by their own experience and then tries to extrapolate their experience into a story world.
Hmm. You an actor yourself, as I understand, as I recall. You have been in some productions locally.
Oh, yeah, you're probably looking at my IMDb. When I was at UCLA in film school, I was in, a bit character in a couple films simply because my friends needed an actor, and I was happened to be there. I never pursued acting in any way professionally, or I did in high school. I did take a drama,
Hmm.
and we did some actors exercises there, and I believe yeah, I was in one of the school plays. But other than that,
Haven't you done some local theater as well?
I have written, and
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah.
I've written some local theater that's been
Yeah.
produced.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have to ask about the poster on the wall behind you. Is that one of yours?
No, that's a poster I got in Paris when I was there. I just love the image. J'aime beaucoup ce que vous faites. I love everything you do is the translation. And in Hollywood, there's many people that will tell you that. Yeah, and as a screenwriter, they'll even tell you that about something you've written or your script, and then
Mhm.
you never hear from them again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just thought it was sort of a great quote.
The knives out, the knife out in the back, ready to stab you.
Yes,
Yes.
and that's the other thing,
Yeah.
the person that sort of smiles to you but is thinking malicious thoughts.
Yeah.
Obviously, unfortunately, there's a certain amount of those types of people in life in general.
There are indeed. Uh, the whole idea in my mind of defending in costume, because these are the warders. He's in a costume. He's defending the castle that was built, as you pointed, almost 1,000 years ago, against modern weapons and modern crooks, and it feels. I never know how to pronounce quixotic or quixotic or however you say Don Quixote like. in that sense, but except he doesn't have any illusions. He's seeing things as they really are. But
Yes,
yeah, it's
yes. But yeah, I'm a big fan of that Cervantes book, Don Quixote, and I definitely was an influence in this in writing this story for sure.
yeah,
Because some people, while he may not be, delusional, some people perceive him to be that way, and I'm always fascinated by that dynamic, between somebody who is so entrenched in their own position and viewpoint, uh, and others who perceive their devotion to that viewpoint as, insanity.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a very subjective thing.
It is indeed. I have to ask, when you're researching all of this, was there a fact or two that you really wanted to put in but just couldn't figure out how to make it work?
Wow, that's an excellent question. Um, I work with an editor, and she really wanted me to focus on the point of view of the characters.
Hmm.
Uh, and that is something in fiction and prose fiction that's very important. Whereas in screenwriting, it's very different. In screenwriting, you're not necessarily seeing a scene through the eyes of a certain character,
Hmm.
like you are in a book. Whereas, in a screenplay, there's a camera; it can be wherever.
Yeah.
Where when you have to have this omniscient third person narrator, even in that genre or voice, you still have to let your audience or reader know which character you are seeing the action through. They are sort of the camera per
Hmm.
se. So I did have other character points of view in this book that didn't make the edit, because you can dilute, I think, and this was her point, that you can lose people if you're swapping between too many different viewpoints.
Uh,
Some people do it very well, like Ken Follett. I think
yeah.
most of his books have, I think, at least 8 or 9 different
Yeah.
point of view characters. But I'm not, saying I'm up to his level. So we cut some of those other points of view characters.
I think one of the things that I've heard from so many authors is that you got to kill your babies. You write a particular passage you think is absolutely superb, but it doesn't advance the plot, and it has to
Absolutely.
go. So, yeah. Is there anything we haven't touched on yet, some aspect of this particular book that you want to make sure that the audience knows about?
Wow. Well, I mean, we touched briefly on the diamond. I mean, the
Hmm.
diamond is sort of the MacGuffin in the story. Um, and I think it's probably best to leave that to the
Okay.
readers to get into the whole lore and the legends surrounding the diamond. But I was certainly very fascinated by that. And that was something that sort of came out of the research I did.
Hmm.
Um, I just thought that was fascinating, the idea of this curse,
Yeah.
um, that specifically can be is mostly applied to males
Yeah.
who
Yeah. Yeah.
possess the diamond.
And then there's a point in there where males are afraid to touch it, but they get a
Yeah.
female to touch it. So yeah, so they would not be cursed by that. I know what I was going to mention. The ravens. The ravens are such a
Yeah.
part of this, and particularly one raven who has a fondness for the daughter. But the fact that they are people who are paid by the crown to care for the ravens, because the legend is if they ever go, so will England. So
Yes.
uh, those are really well cared for birds, lucky birds that they are.
Yes, they are.
Yeah,
They're also they're incredibly intelligent. Ravens are some of the smartest birds in existence, and yeah, I love that character.
yeah,
Herman the Raven. I really wanted to explore that legend
Mhm.
and how it would apply in this case.
Interestingly enough, you talk about how they lure them and how they take care of them and they know them all and they have interactions. I know that the Corvidae family that the ravens and crows belong to, again, you mentioned is highly intelligent. And if you go on YouTube and look up smart ravens, you'll see them using tools, picking up things in their beak and poking it, or as one raven was dropping the walnuts at the stop signs where the cars would run over them so he didn't have to,
Yeah,
things like that. Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. What I have to ask this because we're kind of rolling down toward the end. What's next for you? What's in the progress? Because these things take a while to come out after you write them. So I'm figuring the next book is what, 3/4 of the way done?
Not quite. It's
Yeah.
begun.
Yeah.
Not quite 3/4 of the way.
Okay.
But I am working on a sequel to Bee Conspiracy
Oh, excellent.
because quite a few people really liked that story and those characters, and I feel like those characters could continue through several different stories. Obviously, the idea of a procedural,
Hmm.
uh, although sort of a very different type of procedural with insect evidence,
Yeah.
could be applied to a series of stories. So I'm at work on a sequel to Bee Conspiracy.
I am so eager to see that come out because I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, it was totally. I have a very close friend who's a beekeeper, and he absolutely went nuts over this. He said, "It's about damn time we had a book about beekeepers."
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, and that story continues. I mean, you may have heard that, the bees are still in jeopardy.
Yeah.
And so it's very topical.
Indeed. And if we lose our pollinators, folks, it's game over.
Correct.
So anyway,
Correct.
that's a whole other topic we can
Yes.
talk about next time. Anything else before we close out today that you want to make sure to
Really
mention?
appreciate your support and your help, Roger, and it's always a big pleasure to speak with you.
Oh, we need to mention where they can find your book and where they can find you.
Oh, absolutely. You can go to fatalcastle.com, and that has purchase links. You can either purchase it on Amazon. Some people prefer to purchase from independent bookstores, and there's a link to bookshop.org so that you can purchase it through your local independent bookstore and support the brick and mortar bookstores, which obviously another thing that is on the verge of extinction. So we like to support independent booksellers.
We're all about that because, as somebody said in one time, Amazon's not going to contribute to your little league team at home, and the local bookstore might. It's a great deal. Thank you so much again. Our guest today, David Boito. The book is absolutely fantastic. It's called Fatal Castle. Go out and buy multiple copies for all your friends for Christmas. Thank you again for being with us.
Thank you so much, Roger.